I'm here with Anna Peachy from Plymouth City Council from the
Inclusive Economy team.
The Inclusive Economy team, you heard that here first. And today we're going to be talking about inclusivity and employment and such like that. Thank you for joining me today for a little chat.
Thanks for inviting me, Henry.
So I want to hear about the Inclusive Charter and that side of things. Where does that come into it all with employability?
So about 2016, Plymouth City Council started wanting to explore how we can give employers a framework for understanding what they can best do to support inclusivity in Plymouth. So obviously in Plymouth we have quite a lot of deprivation. We have a particular kind of arc of deprivation, as we call it in Plymouth, where indices of multiple deprivation are very high, so that affects things like unemployment, number of hours work, health, childhood, education, achievement, all of those kinds of things. And so we were very aware that we need to make sure that the economy, that employers are giving people the best chance to participate in the workforce and also to be able to aspire and benefit from the economy. So making sure that all those kind of economic benefits that lots of places take for granted about having thriving high streets, having sporting facilities and cultural facilities are all accessible and accessed by people from right across the city. And
it does benefit everybody in that sense. That growth, that inclusive growth is for everybody, isn't it, really?
That's the intention. But as I'm sure your colleagues in CTEC know, that in practice it doesn't always work that way. So what the council wanted to do, working with our Plymouth Growth Board partners who have an inclusive growth group as part of it, they wanted to really explore how that works in practice and how we can be much more proactive in making it happen. So we developed the charter and we were ready to launch in March 2020. Yes. And we finally launched in March 2021. And it's called the Plymouth Charter, website plymouthcharter.com. And it provides 5 themes around things like the way that businesses spend money locally, and ensuring that, if they're contracting with somebody, that they're looking at whether that business is also kind of ethical and inclusive in the way that they work. How they upskill their staff. Employment, which is things like recruitment and how they kind of welcome people into the workplace. Do they offer placements to people, especially those groups that we're well aware in Plymouth really benefit from those kinds of placements, like veterans, people with lived experience of the care system, those kinds of things. So all of those kinds of activities were already going on in businesses in Plymouth, but by having a network and naming them and saying this is what good looks like, this is where you can get information, here's some toolkits if you're not quite sure, developing the conversations between businesses about what works for them, where they started, how they're developing. So we've spent last 18 months or so developing that network and looking at the kind of topics that employers really want to talk about and the things that they're struggling with. We've been very lucky to have some of the last of the European funding to do that with, which finishes in March. So we now have a network of 280 something businesses involved, growing rapidly. So, we're hoping that the next phase then is a really proactive network of businesses. We've got about 60 or 80 who are involved in a lot of things, about 200 who are involved regularly. and another 80 or so that we need to do a bit more reaching out to. So a bit like yourselves, where you've got that network of businesses who are very supportive of the work that you do, and hence that's why we work with you.
It's really important, like you say, to have that information easily accessible as well, because I think that's part of it, is getting that message out there. And when people know the information's there, they will come. You know, you've just got to tell them. What are the benefits of inclusive employability and recruitment? What are the benefits of that? Obviously there are endless benefits, but what stand out to you?
Well, the big benefit is that people with all sorts of different talents don't come packaged as a stereotype. They might have particular needs in the way that they work or the way that they go through a recruitment process. I mean, the obvious one to talk about would be something like dyslexia, where it's now very well known that dyslexia doesn't reflect somebody's intelligence. Because there are so many famous examples, aren't there, of people who are incredibly successful and incredibly intelligent with dyslexia. So we know that there are talents that need some kind of adaptations in the way that they're recruited and the way that they're managed and the way that they do their work. So all sorts of neurodiversity and health limitations, but also caring responsibilities is a big one. Those kind of backgrounds in deprivation, where perhaps people might be very capable and very clever, but they don't have experience of the kind of behaviours and languages and networking that others might have. So how do we create an economy that invites people in, makes them feel welcome, makes them feel that they can be their best selves at work?
I'm going to ask you now,
and that's what it's about.
How can we make sure these people feel welcomed? How can we support them? What's your go-to in that?
Well, a lot of it is about breaking down the stereotypes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is what you do all the time. It is about providing opportunities for people to be confident in expressing what their own employability needs are, and knowing that they won't be treated as less able because they've got particular employment needs. So that's about managers understanding that. It's about all of us understanding that we have biases and that we need to be open in those conversations. And then it's also, I guess, about providing just some ideas about what works.
Sharing that ideas,
Sharing those ideas, So one of the ones I hear talked about quite a lot is about providing interview candidates with the questions in advance and making sure that they know who they're meeting, where they're meeting, what kind of environment they're going to be sat in. Which seems really basic, but a lot of employers or recruiting managers kind of don't even know that that's an option because they've never done it that way. Or perhaps they were trained to do it, people sat on either side of a desk.
This is it,
wearing a suit.
We're so set in our ways sometimes, aren't we? That sometimes you need somebody to shake it up a bit and say, well, have we tried doing it this way?
Yeah.
And like you say, it's those little things as well. It's always the little things, I think. And like you say, sending those questions ahead of time and just being empathetic in that way as well.
Yeah. And first day in, do you put somebody in front of a laptop and tell them to read a load of health and safety information, or do you make them feel welcome?
Have conversation and a cup of tea. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with myself today. It's been lovely to speak to you. And
it was lovely to speak to you too, Henry.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thank you very much.